The conference room aboard the Zetharian flagship Eternal Dominance was designed to intimidate. The ceiling stretched 15 meters high, covered in holographic displays showing thousands of conquered worlds. Each one bore the mark of the Dominion, a symbol that meant submission across 10,000 star systems. Admiral Krovik stood at the head of the massive table, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. His species, the Zetharians, had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They were tall, nearly 3 meters each, with gray-scaled skin and eyes that glowed a dim red. They were warriors, conquerors, and they had never known defeat. Across from Krovik sat 3 humans. They looked impossibly small in the vast chamber. The lead human was a woman named Maria Chen. She wore a simple blue suit with a small pin on her lapel showing Earth, a planet the Zetharians had only discovered 6 months ago. Next to her sat 2 others, a man named James Rodriguez and another woman named Keiko Tanaka. They looked calm, too calm. Krovik did not like it. "You understand the offer we present," Krovik said. His voice was deep and carried the weight of absolute authority. "The Zetharian Dominion extends its protection to your species. You will provide tribute, resources, and soldiers when called upon. In return, we will not destroy your homeworld. This is generous. Most species fight us first. They lose, then they submit. We are saving you that pain." Maria Chen looked at her 2 companions. Then she did something Krovik had never seen in 300 years of delivering ultimatums to primitive species. She smiled. Not a small, nervous smile. A genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. Then James Rodriguez made a sound, a short burst of air from his mouth. A laugh. Keiko Tanaka covered her mouth with her hand, but her shoulders shook. Krovik's red eyes narrowed. "You find something amusing about your civilization's destruction?" No, Maria said, composing herself but still smiling. "I'm sorry, Admiral. It's just that you sound exactly like the Mongols, or the Romans, or the British Empire, or about a dozen other groups from our history who said the same thing." She folded her hands on the table. "They were all very confident, too. Those are names of your conquered peoples?" Krovik asked. "They submitted to stronger powers, as is natural. As you will." "Actually," James said, leaning back in his chair, "they were the conquerors, or at least they tried to be. The Mongols ruled half of Asia. The Romans controlled the Mediterranean for centuries. The British claimed the sun never set on their empire." He paused. "They're all gone now. History books and archaeological sites." Krovik slammed one of his massive fists on the table. The metal dented. "You compare our eternal dominion to your primitive tribes? We have ruled the galaxy since before your species learned to use fire. We have weapons that crack planets, fleets that blot out stars." "We know," Maria said gently. "We've been watching you for about 40 years now. Your sensor technology is pretty good, but it's not perfect. We've had stealth probes in your territory since 2043. We know how many ships you have, what your weapons can do, and how you organize your command structure." She pulled out a small tablet. "We also know that you've been having supply problems in the outer rim sectors. The species you conquered there keep sabotaging your logistics chains. Must be frustrating." The room fell silent. Krovik's officers, standing at attention along the walls, exchanged glances. One of them, a younger officer named Vextil, stepped forward. "Admiral, they are lying. Our security is absolute. No primitive species could infiltrate our territory." "Could not," Keiko corrected. "Past tense, we did. Multiple times. We also hacked your communications network about 6 months ago. Did you ever wonder why your encrypted military channels kept playing that song? The one that goes, 'Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down'? That was us. We call it getting rickrolled. It's a joke." Krovik felt something he had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. These humans were either insane or far more dangerous than their appearance suggested. "You have 1 Earth week," he said slowly. 7 of your days. Submit, or we will demonstrate why none resist the Dominion." Maria Chen stood up. Her 2 companions followed. "Admiral Krovik, we appreciate you coming all this way. We really do. But humanity has to decline your offer. We've got prior commitments. Democracy, freedom, self-determination. Those kinds of things. They're important to us. Also, we're just not interested in joining your empire." She extended her hand. "No hard feelings." Krovik stared at the offered hand. In Zetharian culture, physical contact was reserved for combat or mating. He did not take it. "You are fools. In 7 days your world burns." "We'll be ready," Maria said, lowering her hand. One more thing, though. You should know that this conversation is being broadcast live to every country on Earth. About 8 billion people are watching right now. They all just heard you threaten to burn our world. She smiled again. Humans are funny creatures, Admiral. We're at our most dangerous when someone threatens our home. History is full of people who learned that lesson the hard way. The three humans turned and walked toward the transport pad that would beam them back to their shuttle. As they disappeared in columns of light, Krovik's second officer approached. Admiral, your orders? Begin preparations, Krovik said. We will make an example of these humans. The other vassal species are watching. If we show weakness, we invite rebellion. He looked at the spot where the humans had stood. But increase intelligence gathering. I want to know everything about Earth's military capabilities. Everything. On Earth, Maria Chen materialized in the transport hub beneath Geneva. Waiting for her was General Sarah Mitchell, head of the United Earth Defense Force. How did it go? Mitchell asked. Exactly as we predicted, Maria said. He gave us 1 week. He's arrogant, overconfident, and completely convinced we're primitive. Perfect. She walked toward the elevator with Mitchell beside her. Is everything in position? The fleets are ready, Mitchell confirmed. Defense platforms are online. Ground-based railguns are charged. Every major city has bunkers ready for civilians. And the moon batteries are armed, she smiled grimly. We've been preparing for this for 40 years, ever since we detected their empire. If they come, they're in for a surprise. They'll come, James said, following behind them. Krovik's type always does. They can't imagine losing because they never have. Above Earth in high orbit, thousands of satellites adjusted their positions. They looked like commercial communications equipment or scientific instruments. They were not. Each one was a weapons platform, carefully disguised and patiently waiting. On the moon, massive electromagnetic launchers sat in craters, their barrels pointed at the sky. In the asteroid belt, mining stations that were not quite mining stations locked onto predetermined coordinates. Mars Colony activated defense shields that had been secretly installed over decades. In military command centers across Earth, soldiers reviewed their orders. Many of them were nervous. Some were scared. But most shared a common trait that humanity had carried since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. They were stubborn. Tell a human something is impossible, and they will find a way to do it anyway. Tell a human to surrender, and they will fight twice as hard. Admiral Krovik did not understand this about humans yet. He would learn. Back on the Eternal Dominance, Krovik reviewed the intelligence reports on Earth. The planet had approximately 8 billion inhabitants. Their technology was primitive by Dominion standards. They had barely left their own star system. Their largest weapons were fusion bombs that could destroy cities. Against planet crackers that could shatter entire worlds, such weapons were toys. They have no chance, Vextil said, reading the same reports. Why did they refuse? Why did they laugh? Madness, Krovik decided. Or ignorance. Perhaps both. He magnified the image of Earth on the central display. It was a beautiful world, covered in blues and greens and whites. A pity we must burn it. But the Dominion demands obedience. We will destroy their military, their cities, their hope. Then we will demand submission again. They will accept, and if they do not? Vextil asked. Krovik's red eyes glowed brighter. Then we will show them why extinct species do not refuse the Dominion twice. The 7 days passed slowly. On Earth, families said goodbyes. Soldiers took their positions. Scientists made final adjustments to weapon systems. And in living rooms, offices, and schools across the planet, humans watched the news with a mixture of fear and determination. On the 6th day, a young reporter interviewed an old woman in New York City. Are you afraid? The reporter asked. The Zetharian fleet arrives tomorrow. The woman who had lived through 3 wars and 2 pandemics smiled. Honey, I'm 103 years old. I've been afraid before. It didn't help then, and it won't help now. Those aliens think they can scare us into submission. She laughed, a dry, crackling sound. We're humans. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten. My grandmother told me stories about World War II. People said the Nazis couldn't be stopped. They were wrong. Someone always thinks they're invincible. They never are. The interview went viral. Across Earth, people shared it, commented on it, and found courage in it. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and climate disasters. They would survive this too, or they would die trying. Either way, they would not kneel. On the seventh day, Admiral Krovik's fleet entered the Sol system. 300 warships, each one larger than anything humans had built. Their weapons could glass continents. Their shields could withstand nuclear weapons. They moved through space like a swarm of metal predators, confident and unstoppable. Krovik opened communications with Earth. His face appeared on every screen, every display, every device capable of receiving a signal. "Humans of Earth," he said, "this is your final chance. Submit or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to signal your surrender." In the United Earth Defense Force Command Center, General Mitchell looked at her staff. "Well," she said, "I guess we're doing this. All stations prepare to engage. Let's show these bastards why you don't threaten humanity's homeworld." "Should we respond to Krovik's message?" someone asked. Maria Chen, who had been appointed as diplomatic liaison during the crisis, smiled. "Already done. I sent it 5 minutes ago." On the Eternal Dominance, a communication alert chimed. Krovik opened it, expecting to see Earth's formal surrender. Instead, he saw a simple text message. "Come and take it." Below that were 3 symbols. A smiley face, a middle finger, and a small image of Earth with the caption, "Try me." Krovik stared at the message. Then he roared in rage, "All ships, attack! Burn that planet to ash." The war for Earth had begun, and Admiral Krovik was about to learn what humanity did to overconfident empires. The Zetharian fleet moved toward Earth like a metal storm. 300 warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons charging, their shields at maximum. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, Admiral Krovik watched the blue and green planet grow larger on his displays. He felt satisfaction. This would be quick, brutal, a lesson to every species in the galaxy that none refused the dominion. "Admiral, we are detecting unusual readings," Vextil reported from the sensor station. "There are objects in orbit around Earth, thousands of them. They appear to be satellites. Communications and observation equipment," Krovik dismissed. "Ignore them. Target the major population centers. Prepare planet cracker missiles for the capitals of their largest nations. We will give them one final chance to surrender when they see their cities erased." What Krovik did not know was that those satellites were already targeting his fleet. In high orbit around Earth, thousands of weapons platforms came alive. Their disguises fell away as panels opened to reveal railguns, missile pods, and laser batteries. On the moon, electromagnetic launchers the size of skyscrapers hummed with power. In the asteroid belt, what looked like mining stations rotated to bring hidden weapons to bear. General Mitchell stood in the command center deep beneath Geneva. Around her, hundreds of officers monitored displays showing the approaching enemy fleet. "Range?" she asked. "They will be in optimal firing range in 30 seconds. A tactical officer reported. "They are targeting our major cities. New York, Beijing, London, Moscow, Tokyo, São Paulo. They are preparing to fire." "Let them get closer," Mitchell said calmly. "We want them fully committed." Nice and confident. She looked at the communications officer. "Put me on all channels." "Including theirs," the officer nodded. A light turned green. Mitchell spoke, and her voice was transmitted to every human military unit and every Zetharian ship simultaneously. "All defense forces, this is General Mitchell. You have trained for this moment. You know your duty. You are defending your home, your families, your species. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth. Fire at will." Then she did something that confused the Zetharians listening. She said, "DJ, play our song." Across all communication channels, including the military frequencies the Zetharian fleet was using, music suddenly blared. It was a song from Earth's past, from a war fought centuries before. The lyrics talked about not being fortunate sons, about flags and fighting. The music was loud, aggressive, and completely inappropriate for a space battle. The Zetharians had never heard anything like it. "What is this noise?" Krovik demanded. "Block their transmissions." "We cannot, Admiral," the communications officer said, frantically working his controls. "They are broadcasting on every frequency. They have overridden our systems. Now there is different music. It is very loud and contains much screaming." The song had changed. Now it was heavy metal, a genre of music that seemed designed to be played at maximum volume during combat. The guitars were aggressive, the drums pounded like weapons fire, and the vocals were raw and defiant. Then Earth struck. The satellites in orbit opened fire first. Thousands of railgun rounds, each one moving at a significant fraction of light speed, tore through space toward the Zetharian fleet. The rounds were simple metal slugs, nothing fancy, but they moved so fast that when they hit, they carried enormous kinetic energy. Shields that could withstand nuclear weapons flickered and failed against the relentless barrage. 3 Zetharian cruisers at the front of the formation simply disintegrated, torn apart by rounds that punched through them like paper. Shields failing, an officer shouted on the Eternal Dominance. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" "Kinetic weapons," Vextil said, his voice shaking, moving at relativistic speeds. "Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, not solid projectiles at these velocities." "Admiral, we must retreat." "No," Krovic roared. "All ships return fire. Destroy those satellites." The Zetharian fleet responded. Energy beams and missiles launched toward Earth. But the satellites were small, numerous, and moving. Most shots missed. Those that hit destroyed satellites, but there were thousands of them and they kept firing. More importantly, the satellites were not Earth's only defense. From the moon came something the Zetharians had never encountered. The massive electromagnetic launchers fired, and projectiles the size of small spacecraft accelerated to incredible speeds. These were not simple slugs. These were guided kinetic kill vehicles, smart weapons that could adjust their trajectory. 6 of them struck 6 different Zetharian battleships. The impacts were catastrophic. Each projectile hit with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon, but there was no radiation, no electromagnetic pulse. Just pure, devastating kinetic energy. "We have lost the Dreadnought's fist of dominion and eternal wrath," someone reported. "The Conqueror's pride is venting atmosphere." "Admiral, our formation is breaking." Krovic could not believe what he was seeing. Primitive humans, barely capable of spaceflight. They were destroying his fleet. "Send in the fighters," he ordered. "Overwhelm their defenses with numbers." From the Zetharian carriers came thousands of single-pilot fighters. They swarmed toward Earth like angry insects. The human defenders met them with fighters of their own. The human craft were smaller, lighter, and faster. They moved in ways that should have killed their pilots, making turns and accelerations that should have crushed any organic being inside. What the Zetharians did not know was that human pilots were augmented. Genetic modifications, cybernetic enhancements, and drug cocktails allowed them to survive forces that would liquefy normal humans. A human pilot could pull 15 gravities of force and keep fighting. Their reaction times were enhanced. Their vision was linked directly to their ship's targeting systems. They were part machine, part human, and entirely deadly. The dogfights were vicious. Zetharian fighters exploded by the dozens. Human fighters twisted and rolled, firing missiles and cannon rounds with precision. One human pilot, callsign Reaper, destroyed 9 enemy fighters in 3 minutes. Another, callsign Ghost, flew through the debris of a destroyed Zetharian cruiser and emerged on the other side, guns blazing, taking out 4 more enemies who had been using the wreckage as cover. "This is Ghost to all units." The pilot's voice came over the human channels. "These guys fly like they're in a parade formation. Stick and move, people. Make them chase you into the satellite kill zones." It was a massacre. Human fighters led Zetharian pursuers into preset ambush zones where satellites waited. The enemy fighters flew into walls of railgun fire. Hundreds died. The survivors broke off, trying to retreat to their carriers. Many did not make it. On the Eternal Dominance, Krovic watched his fleet fall apart. "Damage report." 83 ships destroyed, Vextil said quietly. 47 heavily damaged. "We have lost 60% of our fighter complement. Admiral, we must withdraw. Now. Not yet." Krovic smashed his fist on the command console. "Deploy the planet crackers. If we cannot conquer this world, we will destroy it." 6 massive missiles launched from the remaining battleships. Each one carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, to trigger volcanic eruptions and earthquakes that would kill billions. They accelerated toward Earth, their engines burning bright in the darkness of space. In the command center, alarms blared. "Planet crackers detected," an officer shouted. 6 missiles inbound. Impact in 90 seconds. Activate the Aegis system, Mitchell ordered. Around Earth, a network of satellites that had remained dormant suddenly powered up. They formed a defensive grid, each one projecting an energy field. The fields overlapped, creating a shimmering barrier around the planet. It was technology humanity had developed in secret, based on theories that took decades to prove. The Aegis shield could not stop everything, but it could stop the planet crackers. The missiles struck the shield. Explosions bloomed in orbit, each one bright enough to be seen from the ground. The shield flickered, weakened, but held. The missiles detonated harmlessly in space, their destructive power dissipated. Shield holding, an officer reported. Power at 40%. It took a beating, but it held. Mitchell allowed herself a small smile. Good, now let's finish this. Launch the javelins. From hidden silos across Earth, from the Moon, and from Mars colony, new weapons launched. The javelins were humanity's answer to Zetharian dreadnoughts. They were unmanned spacecraft packed with explosives and driven by powerful engines. But they were not suicide ships. They were decoys, smart decoys. The javelins broadcast false signatures that made them look like human command ships or colony vessels. The Zetharian fleet, desperate to salvage something from this disaster, took the bait. Dozens of enemy ships moved to intercept what they thought were high-value targets. The javelins led them on a chase, moving away from Earth, drawing the Zetharian ships out of formation. Then the real attack came. Human destroyers and cruisers, which had been hiding in the shadow of Earth's moon, emerged and struck the disorganized Zetharian fleet from behind. The enemy had been so focused on the javelins they never saw the ambush coming. Missile volleys and railgun fire tore into their vulnerable rear sections. More ships died. Full retreat, Krovic finally ordered, his pride shattered. All ships withdraw from Sol system immediately. The surviving Zetharian vessels turned and fled. They left behind debris, escape pods, and their dignity. Of the 300 ships that had entered Sol system, only 180 escaped. 120 ships were destroyed or too damaged to move under their own power. It was the worst defeat the Dominion had suffered in centuries. As the enemy fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, the music on all channels finally stopped. In its place came a simple message broadcast from Earth. It was Ambassador Maria Chen's voice, calm and almost friendly. Admiral Krovic, this is Ambassador Chen. We told you we weren't interested. We told you to leave us alone. You didn't listen. This is what happens when you threaten humanity's home. We were ready for you. We've been ready for 40 years. Every tactic you used, we predicted. Every weapon you deployed, we had a counter. You came here thinking we were primitive, weak, easy prey. You were wrong. Tell your Galactic Council that Earth is off limits.
Tell them what happened here.
Tell them that humanity does not kneel. There was a pause, then Chen's voice took on a slightly amused tone. Oh, and Admiral, about that music we played during the battle? We call that psychological warfare. It's designed to confuse and demoralize the enemy. Did it work? You seemed pretty confused. Anyway, safe travels back to Dominion space. We'll be keeping the escape pods and survivors for now. They'll be treated well according to the Geneva Conventions. Look it up. On the limping Eternal Dominance, Krovic sat in his command chair and stared at the empty space where Earth had been. He had underestimated them. Badly. These humans were not primitive. They were cunning, prepared, and absolutely ruthless when defending their territory. They had turned his overwhelming advantage into a humiliating defeat. Admiral, Vextil said quietly, what do we tell the Galactic Council? Krovic closed his red eyes. The truth. That we encountered a species that fights like nothing we have ever faced. A species that prepared for war while we assumed they would submit. He opened his eyes. And that if we want to defeat them, we will need to commit far more resources than we brought today. What Krovic did not yet know was that Earth's counterattack was already beginning. Human ships were already moving into Dominion space. The war had just started, and humanity had no intention of waiting for the enemy to regroup and return. They were going to take the fight to the Dominion. Because that was what humans did. You hit them, they hit back harder. You threaten their home, they come for yours. The message was clear across the galaxy as news of the battle spread. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had arrived with a declaration written in the wreckage of an empire's fleet. Do not threaten Earth. Do not assume humans will submit. And whatever you do not underestimate what humans will do to protect what they love. The Zetharian Dominion had learned that lesson. Soon the rest of the galaxy would too. The Galactic Council met in emergency session 3 days after the Battle of Sol. The council chamber on Zetheria Prime was a massive structure built to showcase Dominion power. Representatives from 100 vassal species sat in tiered seating, all of them watching as Admiral Krovic stood before the Council of Five. The ruling body of the Dominion. Explain, commanded High Counselor Thexnor. He was ancient even by Zetharian standards, over 500 years old. His scales were nearly black with age and his red eyes burned with barely contained fury. Explain how a primitive species destroyed 40% of our fleet. Krovik stood straight despite his injuries. The humans were prepared, High Counselor. They had been observing us for decades. They knew our tactics, our weapons, our formations. They used kinetic weapons at relativistic speeds, which our shields were not designed to counter. They used psychological warfare, broadcasting noise during battle to disrupt our communications and confuse our forces. Their pilots are genetically modified to withstand extreme forces. Their ships are smaller but faster and more maneuverable than ours. Excuses, Thexnor spat. You had 300 ships. You should have been able to glass their planet before they could mount a defense. They had orbital weapons platforms disguised as satellites, Krovik continued. Thousands of them. They had mass drivers on their moon that could accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds. They had a planetary shield we did not know existed. High Counselor, these humans are not primitive. They are dangerous, Thexnor leaned forward. Then we will send more ships. 3,000. 30,000 if necessary. We will crush them. With respect, High Counselor, said a voice from the council seating. It belonged to a member of the Phylixian species, a race of feline-like beings conquered 2 centuries prior. Might it be wiser to negotiate? If the humans are as capable as Admiral Krovik suggests, perhaps peace would serve the Dominion better than continued war. Peace? Thexnor's voice was cold. The Dominion does not negotiate with species that refuse submission. We conquer or we destroy. There is no third option. He turned back to Krovik. You have one chance to redeem yourself, Admiral. Take command of our border fleets. Fortify our territory against any human response. They may have won one battle, but they cannot possibly challenge our entire empire. Krovik saluted and left the chamber. He wanted to warn them. He wanted to tell them that humans would not simply defend and wait. But he knew the council would not listen. They never did. So he went to prepare the border defenses and hoped he was wrong about what would come next. He was not wrong. 2 days later, chaos erupted across 12 Dominion border worlds simultaneously. Human ships appeared out of faster-than-light travel in perfect coordination. But these were not the defensive platforms and fighters that had battled over Earth. These were assault ships designed for offensive operations. And they did not attack the way the Dominion expected. On the world of Kelvar III, a mining colony with a population of 3 million Dominion citizens and 2 million enslaved workers from conquered species, human ships appeared in orbit. The local defense fleet, 20 Zetharian cruisers, moved to intercept. Then the humans broadcast a message. It was not a threat. It was not a demand for surrender. It was a song, the same heavy metal music that had played during the Battle of Sol. The Zetharian commanders were confused. Then the human ships opened fire, and the confusion turned to panic. The human ships moved like nothing the Zetharian fleet had encountered. They dodged, weaved, and performed maneuvers that seemed impossible. One human destroyer, painted bright yellow with a giant smiley face on its hull, flew through the formation of Zetharian cruisers while firing in all directions. Its weapons destroyed 3 cruisers before the enemy could even target it properly. On its side, someone had painted the words, "Have a nice day," in 5 different languages, including Zetharian. What kind of military paints smiley faces on their warships? The Kelvar defense commander shouted. His question was never answered because a human missile struck his ship's bridge. But the missile did not explode. Instead, it breached the hull and deployed something. A broadcast system. And from every speaker on the damaged Zetharian ship, a voice spoke in perfect Zetharian. Attention, Dominion forces. This is Captain Sarah Johnson of the UES Freedom's Dawn. We are not here to kill you unless you make us. We are here to free the people you have enslaved. If you care about your lives, abandon your ships now. You have 5 minutes. We will recover your escape pods. You will be treated as prisoners of war according to the Geneva Conventions, which I know you have been studying since the Battle of Sol. Your choice, fight and die or surrender and live. Clock starts now. The message repeated in multiple languages. The Zetharian commander looked at his crew. Half his bridge was destroyed. His shields were down. His weapons were barely functional. Around him, other Dominion ships were exploding or venting atmosphere. The human fleet was simply too fast, too precise, too coordinated. Abandon ship, he ordered quietly. All hands to escape pods. Within 4 minutes, the Zetharian defense fleet was gone. The ships were captured or destroyed, and the crews were floating in escape pods. True to their word, human ships recovered every single pod. Not one Zetharian was left to die in space. Then the humans did something that shocked the Dominion to its core. They hacked the planetary communication network and broadcast a message to everyone on Kelvar 3. The message was from Ambassador Maria Chen. "People of Kelvar 3, she said, her image appearing on every screen. Humanity offers you a choice. The Zetharian Dominion has ruled you through fear and force. They have taken your freedom, your resources, and your dignity. We are here to give you a different option. Freedom, independence, the right to rule yourselves. We are not here to conquer you. We are here to break your chains." Then the message changed. Documents appeared on screens. Financial records showing how the Dominion diverted resources from Kelvar 3 to the core worlds. Communications between Dominion officials discussing the population as cattle and resources to be exploited. Orders to suppress any signs of resistance with extreme violence. Evidence of corruption at every level of the Dominion administration. The enslaved workers on Kelvar 3 saw the message. They saw the proof of what they had always suspected. And they acted. Across the planet, uprisings began. The Dominion garrison, already demoralized by the destruction of their fleet, found themselves facing millions of angry people who had nothing left to lose. Many Dominion troops surrendered immediately. Some tried to fight and were overwhelmed. Within 12 hours, Kelvar 3 was free. The Dominion flag was torn down and burned. A provisional government was formed, led by former resistance leaders who had been in hiding for years. And human soldiers on the ground, wearing armor painted with flowers and peace symbols, helped distribute food and medical supplies. "Why do your soldiers decorate their armor with flowers?" one Kelvar citizen asked a human sergeant. The sergeant, whose armor was covered in painted roses and daisies, grinned. "Psychological warfare. The Dominion expects us to look scary and threatening. Instead, we look cheerful and friendly. It confuses them. Also, my grandma loves roses, and I figure if I'm going to fight for freedom, I might as well make my armor look nice. Plus, it's funny watching Dominion troops try to process being shot at by someone wearing flower power armor." This scene repeated across all 12 border worlds. Human ships appeared, neutralized Dominion defenses, and then helped local populations overthrow their oppressors. But the humans did more than just fight. They engaged in psychological warfare on a scale the galaxy had never seen. On one world, human ships broadcast comedy shows on all Dominion military frequencies. Zetharian commanders trying to coordinate their defense instead heard human comedians making jokes about Dominion pomposity and tactical incompetence. One particularly skilled hacker managed to override the holographic display in a Dominion admiral's ready room, replacing his tactical maps with footage of dancing cats from Earth's internet archives. The admiral was so confused and frustrated that he made several critical tactical errors, leading to the loss of his entire fleet. On another world, human commandos infiltrated a Dominion supply depot. Instead of destroying it, they reprogrammed the automated systems. Every time a Dominion soldier requisitioned supplies, the system would deliver something completely wrong. Request ammunition, get toilet paper. Request medical supplies, get party decorations. Request vehicle fuel, get cooking oil. The Dominion forces on that planet were so disorganized by the supply chaos that they barely resisted when human ground forces arrived. The most infamous incident became known as the Great Sewage Incident. A human hacker infiltrated the automated systems on a Dominion dreadnought. The hacker, who went by the call sign Plumber, managed to reverse the waste reclamation system. For 6 hours, everything that should have been processed and recycled instead backed up through the ship's plumbing. The ship's commander, Grand Admiral Vexloth, had to evacuate his flagship because it had literally become uninhabitable due to sewage flooding every deck. The human fleet allowed the evacuation, then captured the abandoned dreadnought. Later, the humans returned it to the Dominion after thoroughly cleaning it with a note that said, "Here's your ship back. We cleaned up your mess. You're welcome. Try not to be so full of it next time." Signed, Plumber and the UES Flush. The video of Vexloth evacuating his sewage-flooded flagship went viral across the galaxy. Vassal species shared it secretly, laughing at the mighty Dominion brought down by human humor and creativity. The Dominion tried to suppress the footage, but it kept reappearing on networks across their empire. Humans had not just hacked their computers. They had hacked their entire information infrastructure, but the psychological warfare went deeper. Human intelligence operatives who had been embedded in Dominion territory for years began revealing themselves. They uploaded documents to public networks, evidence of Dominion war crimes, corruption, embezzlement, and incompetence. Financial records showing that Dominion elites lived in luxury, while vassal species starved. Communications between Dominion officials discussing how to exploit and control subject populations. One particularly damaging leak came from inside the Galactic Council itself. Someone, and the Dominion never discovered who, had been recording council meetings for years. Footage appeared showing council members laughing about starving populations, discussing which species to exterminate next, and planning how to maintain control through fear. The footage spread across the galaxy faster than the Dominion could suppress it. Vassal species saw the truth. Their rulers were not benevolent protectors. They were parasites. And now those parasites were being challenged by a species that seemed to treat war as both deadly serious and hilariously absurd. Captain Marcus Chen, no relation to Ambassador Maria Chen but equally dedicated to humanity's cause, commanded the destroyer Defiant Spirit. His ship had been in the thick of combat at 4 different border worlds. His hull was painted with graffiti, mostly jokes and insults directed at the Dominion. One side of his ship said, "Roses are red, violets are blue, the Dominion is scared, and you should be too." The other side had a picture of Admiral Krovic with the caption, "I went to Earth and all I got was this lousy defeat." "Captain," his communications officer said, "we are receiving multiple surrender requests from Dominion forces across the Theta sector. They are asking for terms." "Tell them the same thing we tell everyone," Marcus replied. "Surrender, get treated well, and when this is over, they can go home. Keep fighting and we'll keep making their lives difficult. Oh, and let them know we are still accepting song requests for our combat playlist." I think the Dominion troops are starting to enjoy the music. It was true. Some Dominion soldiers had begun to appreciate Earth music. When they surrendered, many asked for copies of the songs that had been playing during battles. Human soldiers happily obliged, even creating mixtapes for prisoners of war. It was bizarre. It was unexpected. It was very human. In the Dominion capital, High Counselor Thexnor received reports of the disasters unfolding across his empire. 12 worlds in open revolt, 6 more showing signs of unrest. Dominion fleets being defeated not through overwhelming force but through confusion, hacking, and psychological warfare that the Dominion had no defense against. And worst of all, the leaks. Every secret the Dominion had kept was being exposed. How? He demanded. How are they everywhere? How do they know everything? Nobody had an answer. But the truth was simple. While the Dominion had assumed humanity was primitive, humans had been studying them, learning their language, their culture, their systems, infiltrating their networks, their organizations, their military. For 40 years, humanity had prepared, and now that preparation was paying off. Ambassador Maria Chen appeared on Dominion communications once more. Her message was broadcast to every world in the Empire, and the Dominion could not stop it. "People of the galaxy," she said, "humanity does not seek to conquer you. We seek to free you. The Dominion claims to bring order and protection. They bring oppression and exploitation. We offer you a choice. Join us in building something better. A galaxy where species cooperate as equals. A galaxy without emperors and slaves. A galaxy of free peoples. The choice is yours." The message ended with a quote from Earth's history, words spoken by a human leader centuries before. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all sentient beings are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." It was a declaration of war, not against the people of the galaxy, but against tyranny itself. And the Dominion, for all its power and all its history, was learning that tyranny, when challenged by those willing to fight for freedom, was far more fragile than it appeared. The Galactic Council chamber was not designed for chaos, but chaos had arrived anyway. Representatives from vassal species shouted at each other and at the Council of Five. Some demanded the Dominion negotiate with humanity. Others called for total war. A few, the bravest or most foolish, suggested the Dominion surrender. High Counselor Thexnor watched the disorder with barely contained rage. This was not how the Dominion functioned. For 3,000 years the Council spoke and vassals obeyed. That order was crumbling. Silence. Thexnor's voice boomed through the chamber. The arguing continued. He slammed his 4 fists on the council table, denting the metal. I said silence. The chamber quieted, but the tension remained. Thexnor looked at the assembled representatives with cold eyes. The Dominion does not negotiate with terrorists and rebels. These humans have attacked our territory, incited rebellion, and leaked classified information. They will be crushed. Admiral Krovik has failed us. He will be executed for his incompetence. I am appointing Grand Admiral Vexeloth to lead our forces in a final decisive campaign against Earth and its allies. From the back of the chamber, a Felixian representative stood. Her name was Tisara, and she had represented her species for 30 years. She was old, tired, and no longer afraid of the Dominion. High Counselor, with respect, Admiral Krovik did not fail because of incompetence. He failed because the humans are superior warriors who prepared for this conflict while we grew complacent. Executing him will not change that, and appointing Vexeloth, whose flagship was disabled by its own plumbing, does not inspire confidence. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Dominion guards moved toward Tessera, but Thexnor held up a hand to stop them. You dare mock the Dominion? I dare speak truth, Tessera replied. Something this council has not heard in centuries. The humans have exposed what we all knew, but were too afraid to say. The Dominion is corrupt, cruel, and built on a foundation of fear. That foundation is cracking. 17 worlds are now in open rebellion. 6 more have declared neutrality. Our vassal fleets are deserting. Some are even joining the humans. The Dominion is collapsing, and executing admirals or sending more ships will not stop it. Treason, Thexnor said quietly. You speak treason, Tessara. I speak truth. There is a difference. She looked around the chamber at the other representatives. Many avoided her gaze, but some met her eyes and nodded. How many of us have lost family to Dominion oppression? How many of us have watched our people suffer while the Dominion elite live in luxury? The humans did not create our resentment. They simply gave us hope that change is possible. Thexnor gestured, and guards seized Tessera. Take her to the detention center. She will be tried for treason and executed. He looked at the other representatives. Let her fate remind you of the cost of defiance. This council is adjourned. We will reconvene when I have decided our next course of action. The representatives filed out, but the mood was different than when they arrived. Some looked frightened. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked angry. The Dominion's absolute control was slipping, and everyone could feel it. In his private chamber, Thexnor met with his most trusted military commanders. Vexeloth was there, recently promoted despite his humiliation. Also present was General Krixtal, head of Dominion ground forces, and Admiral Zhevkor, commander of the home fleet. They were the Dominion's finest military minds, and they all looked worried. The situation is worse than we have admitted publicly, Thexnor said. 23 worlds are now in rebellion. Human ships are appearing across our territory. Our communication networks are compromised. Our intelligence services report that humans have infiltrated every level of our government and military. Some may be in this room. The commanders exchanged glances. How is that possible? Vexeloth asked. Humans look nothing like us. They are smaller, weaker, with those strange hair follicles and forward-facing eyes. How could they infiltrate us? Disguises, Zhevkor suggested. Advanced holographic technology. Or perhaps they recruited members of vassal species to work for them. It does not matter how, Thexnor snapped. What matters is that we are fighting an enemy we do not understand. An enemy that does not fight according to any rules we know. They mock us. They humiliate us. They turn our own people against us. We need a solution. Something that will break human morale and show the vassal species that rebellion is futile. We could deploy the planet crackers on rebellious worlds, Krixtal suggested. Destroy a few major population centers. Make an example. The humans claim to care about innocent life. Let them watch billions die because of their interference. That would only drive more species into rebellion, Vexeloth countered. If we start cracking planets, we prove everything the humans have said about us. We become monsters in the eyes of the entire galaxy. We already are monsters, a voice said from the chamber's entrance. Everyone turned. Standing there was a human. A woman in a simple black suit with a small device in her hand. She smiled pleasantly. Hello, High Counselor. My name is Agent Sarah Kim. I work for Earth Intelligence Services. I have been on Zetheria Prime for 3 years now. I was an assistant to your cultural minister. Nice guy, by the way. Terrible at noticing when his assistant was copying files. Guards rushed toward her, but she pressed a button on her device. Every screen in the chamber activated, showing recordings. Thexnor's private conversations, planning sessions where he discussed exterminating troublesome vassal species, financial records showing embezzlement on a massive scale, communications with crime lords and slavers, evidence of every crime the Dominion had tried to hide. I have already uploaded all of this to public networks, Kim said calmly as guards grabbed her. By now, every person in the Dominion has access to these files. Your secrets are out, High Counselor. The galaxy knows exactly what kind of leader you are. Thexnor's red eyes blazed with fury. Kill her slowly, Kim smiled. You can kill me. That's fine. I accepted that risk when I took this assignment. But it will not matter. There are 50 other agents like me scattered across your empire. We have all uploaded similar evidence. Your government, your military, your entire system is exposed. The people know the truth now. You cannot put that knowledge back in the box. We will find them all, Thexnor growled. We will find every human spy and execute them. Good luck, Kim said as guards dragged her away. Oh, and High Counselor? That special drink you have every morning? The one your personal chef prepares? I have been making that for 2 years. It's not poisoned or anything. I'm not a murderer. But I did add a little something. Nothing harmful. Just a tracking compound. We have known your exact location at all times for 2 years. If we wanted you dead, you would be dead. Remember that. She was gone, but her message remained. The Dominion was compromised at every level. Later that day, public broadcasts across Dominion space showed the recordings Kim had leaked. Citizens saw their leaders discussing them like cattle. Vassal species saw proof of planned genocides and exploitation. Even loyal Dominion military personnel were shocked by the level of corruption and cruelty. Rebellion spread, not just on border worlds but in core territories. Dominion soldiers found themselves facing their own people. Many refused to fire on civilians. Some deserted. Others switched sides entirely. The Dominion military was fracturing. In his cell awaiting execution, Admiral Krovic received an unexpected visitor. It was Ambassador Maria Chen. She had arrived on Zetheria Prime under a flag of truce requesting to speak with him. The Dominion, desperate for any intelligence on human plans, had allowed it. Admiral, Chen said, sitting across from him in the cell, I am sorry about your sentence. You were a competent commander who followed his orders. You do not deserve to die for that. I do not want your pity, human, Krovic said, but his voice lacked its usual strength. He looked tired, defeated. Not pity, respect. You fought well. You adapted quickly when you realized we were not what you expected, but you were given an impossible task. The Dominion sent you to conquer a species that spent 40 years preparing specifically for your empire. We studied everything about you. We learned your tactics. We infiltrated your government. We made friends with the species you oppressed. We did not just prepare for war, Admiral. We prepared for this war against this enemy. Why are you telling me this? Krovic asked. Because I want you to understand something. Chen leaned forward. Humanity does not want to destroy the Zetharian species. We want to destroy the Dominion, the Empire, the system of oppression and exploitation. The Zetharian people? They deserve better than to be ruled by tyrants like Thexnor. And when this is over, when the Dominion falls, we will need people like you, people who understand military discipline and honor, but are not so blinded by ideology that they cannot see when their leaders are wrong. You think I would betray my people? Krovic's eyes flashed with anger. I think you might want to save them, Chen replied. The Dominion is falling, Admiral. Thexnor is planning to use planet crackers on rebellious worlds. He is going to kill billions to maintain his power. You know this is wrong. You know this will only make things worse. You could stop it. You could speak out. You could tell other military commanders that there is another way. Krovic was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. If I do this, what happens to me? I cannot promise you will live, Chen said honestly. The Dominion will probably execute you as a traitor, but maybe, just maybe, you will die knowing you did the right thing, that you saved innocent lives, that you helped build something better. That has to count for something. 3 days later, a recording appeared on military channels across the Dominion. It was Admiral Krovic speaking from his cell. I am Admiral Krovic. I am sentenced to die for my failure at Earth. But before I die, I want to say something to my fellow officers. The humans defeated us because they were better prepared and more dedicated to their cause than we were to ours. But they did not have to humiliate us. They did not have to expose every crime our government has committed. They chose to do so because they believe in truth and justice, things the Dominion abandoned long ago. I served the Dominion for 300 years. I believed in our mission to bring order to the galaxy, but I was wrong. We brought oppression. We brought suffering. The humans have shown us a different path. I urge all military personnel to consider carefully what you are fighting for. Are you fighting for the Dominion's corrupt leaders? Or are you fighting for something better? Choose wisely. Your descendants will judge you by that choice. The recording ended. Hours later, Admiral Krovik was executed by firing squad, but his message had spread. Across the Dominion military, officers and soldiers began to question their orders. Some openly defied commands to attack civilian populations. Others contacted human forces to negotiate local truces. A few entire fleets declared neutrality and withdrew to remote systems to wait out the conflict. The Dominion was eating itself from the inside, and High Counselor Thexnor, watching his empire crumble around him, made a desperate decision. He would deploy every weapon the Dominion possessed. Planet crackers, biological weapons, weapons banned by galactic conventions. He would burn entire worlds if necessary. If the Dominion was going to fall, it would take half the galaxy with it. He called his remaining loyal commanders. Prepare the final option, he ordered. We will show these humans and their rebel allies what true power means. We will show them what happens when they challenge the Dominion. But what Thexnor did not know was that his communications were being monitored. Every order he gave was being recorded and transmitted to human intelligence. And humanity was preparing its response. The game was not over. The final moves were about to be played, and when the dust settled, the galaxy would be forever changed. High Counselor Thexnor stood before the massive display in his war room. The holographic map showed the Dominion's territory in red, with areas of rebellion marked in yellow and human-controlled zones in blue. There was far too much yellow and blue. The red was shrinking day by day. His empire, built over 3,000 years, was collapsing in a matter of months. Status of the final option, he demanded. Grand Admiral Vexeloth consulted his datapad. 20 planet cracker missiles are armed and ready. 10 biological weapon payloads are prepared. We have selected target worlds for maximum psychological impact. Heavily populated worlds in the core of rebellious sectors. When they see entire planets die, the rebels will surrender or face the same fate. No, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. Standing there was Admiral Jevkor, commander of the home fleet. Behind him stood dozens of officers and soldiers, all armed. I cannot allow this, High Counselor. Using weapons of mass destruction on civilian populations is not warfare. It is genocide. I will not be part of it, Thexnor's eyes blazed. You dare commit mutiny? In the midst of war? I dare prevent the slaughter of billions of innocent people, Jevkor replied. High Counselor, I have served the Dominion my entire life. I believed we brought order to chaos. But Admiral Krovik was right. We brought oppression. And now, rather than accept defeat with honor, you want to commit atrocities that will make us monsters in the eyes of history. I cannot follow you down that path. Then you will die with the traitors. Thexnor reached for his weapon, but Jevkor was faster. A stun blast hit the High Counselor and he collapsed. The other officers in the war room loyal to Thexnor reached for their weapons. But Jevkor's forces outnumbered them. Within minutes, the room was secured. Send a message to the human fleet, Jevkor ordered. Tell them that the Dominion Council is under arrest. Tell them we are prepared to negotiate a surrender. In space above Zetheria Prime, the human fleet waited. They had arrived 3 days ago, not with weapons firing, but with a simple message. Evacuate all civilian populations from the planet. We are coming for your government, not your people. You have 72 hours. True to their word, human ships had not fired a single shot at the planet. They had simply waited while billions of Zetharian civilians evacuated to orbital stations and transport ships. The Dominion had expected an attack, had prepared defenses, had positioned their remaining fleet to protect the capital. But the attack never came. The humans just waited. Now, with the message from Jevkor received, Ambassador Maria Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Unity. The flagship of humanity's expeditionary force was not the largest ship, not the most heavily armed. But it was the most important because it represented humanity's goal, not conquest, unity. Admiral Jevkor is requesting permission to come aboard, the communications officer reported. He says he is prepared to discuss terms of surrender. Grant it, Chen said. And make sure he is treated with respect. He just saved billions of lives. That deserves recognition. An hour later, Jevkor stood in the conference room of the Unity. Across from him sat Ambassador Chen, General Mitchell, and several human military officers. The Zetharian admiral looked exhausted. He was a warrior who had just committed the ultimate act of treason by his culture's standards. But he stood straight, dignified despite his circumstances. Ambassador Chen, he began, I am prepared to offer the unconditional surrender of Dominion forces. High Counselor Thexnor and the Council of Five are under arrest. They will be turned over to you for trial. In return, I ask only that you show mercy to the Zetharian people. We are not all monsters despite what our government has done. Admiral, Chen said gently, we never thought you were all monsters. If we did, we would not have spent 40 years trying to understand your culture, your people, your hopes and fears. We studied you because we wanted to find a way to defeat your government without destroying your civilization. Sit down, please. Let's discuss how we move forward. Jevkor sat somewhat surprised by the human's tone. In Dominion culture, surrender meant humiliation, but Chen spoke as if they were colleagues solving a problem together. The terms are simple, Chen continued. All vassal species will be granted immediate independence. All Dominion military forces will disarm. High Counselor Thexnor and any other leaders responsible for war crimes will stand trial before a galactic tribunal. The Zetharian people will not be punished for the crimes of their leaders. And once these terms are met, we will offer something you might find surprising. We will invite the Zetharian people to join the Galactic Cooperative as equal members. Jevkor stared at her. Equal members? After everything we have done? Yes, Mitchell said. Because the Zetharian people are not responsible for the actions of tyrants. You were born into this system. You were taught it was right, but you are capable of change. Admiral Krovik proved that. You proved it today by stopping Thexnor from committing genocide. That shows us that Zetharians can be better than their government was. What is this Galactic Cooperative? Jevkor asked. A voluntary alliance of free species, Chen explained. No emperors. No vassals. Just partners working together for mutual benefit. Every species has equal representation. Decisions are made democratically. And yes, we know it will be messy and complicated and sometimes frustrating. Democracy usually is, but it is better than tyranny. Over the next 3 weeks, the Dominion formally surrendered. Fleets were disarmed. Weapons of mass destruction were dismantled under human supervision. Vassal species celebrated their freedom. And on Zetaria Prime, the trials began. The courtroom was located in the former Galactic Council chamber. But the room had been redesigned. The tiered seating where vassal representatives had been forced to watch Dominion pronouncements was now filled with judges and representatives from dozens of species. At the center, where the Council of Five had once sat in positions of power, were simple chairs for the accused. High Counselor Thexnor sat in one of those chairs, his hands bound. Beside him sat the other 4 council members and various military commanders accused of war crimes. The head judge was a Felixian named Koresh, whose family had been killed by Dominion forces years ago. Many had questioned whether he could be impartial, but he had insisted he could separate personal pain from judicial duty. The trial lasted 4 months. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. The accused were given lawyers and allowed to present defenses. It was not the quick, brutal justice the Dominion had practiced. It was slow, careful, and fair. Even Thexnor, who had expected to be executed immediately, was surprised by the thoroughness of the process. In the end, the verdicts came. Thexnor was found guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The other council members received similar sentences. Some military commanders were found guilty and imprisoned. Others were acquitted when evidence showed they had followed orders without knowledge of their illegality. After the sentencing, Ambassador Chen visited Thexnor in his cell. The former High Counselor looked old and broken. His scales had lost their luster. His eyes no longer burned with authority. He was just a very old Zetharian who had lost everything. Why? He asked Chen. Why did you not execute me? Your species could have taken revenge. No one would have blamed you. Because killing you would not undo the harm you caused, Chen replied. And because we want to show the galaxy that justice is not the same as vengeance. You will spend the rest of your life in prison, thinking about what you did. Maybe you will never understand why you were wrong. Maybe you will die angry and unrepentant. But future generations will look at your trial and see that even the worst criminals deserve due process. That is the kind of galaxy we want to build. Your species is strange, Thexnor said. You fight with jokes and music. You show mercy to enemies. You offer equality to those you have defeated. I do not understand you. That is because you were taught to see the universe in terms of power and submission, Chen said. Strong versus weak. Conqueror versus conquered. But humans learned something over our long, bloody history. We learned that strength without compassion is just cruelty. We learned that the strongest societies are not the ones ruled by force, but the ones built on cooperation and mutual respect. We learned that when you meet someone different, your first instinct should not be to dominate them, but to understand them. She stood to leave, then paused. You know what the funny thing is, High Counselor? If you had approached Earth 40 years ago and asked to trade, to share knowledge, to be friends, we would have said yes. We would have been thrilled. We were looking for allies out here, not enemies. But you assumed we would be weak and easy to control. That assumption cost you everything. Chen left the cell. Thexnor sat alone, contemplating her words. He would have decades to think about them. 2 years after the Dominion's surrender, the First Galactic Cooperative Assembly met on a neutral station. Representatives from 83 species gathered to discuss cooperation, trade, defense, and the future. The station itself was a joint construction, built by humans working alongside Zitharians, Felixians, and dozens of other species. In the assembly hall, Ambassador Chen gave the opening address. Today we begin something new. Not an empire, not a dominion, a cooperative of free peoples. We will face challenges. We will have disagreements. Some days we will wonder if this whole democratic process is worth the frustration, but it is worth it, because every species here has a voice. Every person matters. And together we are building a galaxy where no one kneels and everyone stands as equals. The applause was deafening, not because everyone agreed on everything, but because they agreed on the most important thing. They were free, and they would stay that way. On a rebuilt border world called Kelvar 3, a school opened. Human children and Zitharian children sat in the same classroom. The teacher was a Felixian named Tessera's granddaughter, carrying on her grandmother's legacy of speaking truth. She taught history, including the uncomfortable history of the Dominion, but she also taught hope, how enemies became friends, how broken societies could heal. At a training facility on Mars, human Marines trained alongside former Dominion soldiers. The training was tough, professional, and occasionally interrupted by the humans teaching their Zitharian counterparts about Earth music, humor, and the art of psychological warfare. So you actually paint flowers on your armor? A young Zitharian soldier asked. Absolutely, replied a human sergeant whose armor was covered in painted sunflowers. In combat, your enemy expects you to look a certain way, scary, aggressive, threatening. When you show up looking cheerful and friendly while simultaneously being extremely lethal, it creates cognitive dissonance. They do not know how to process it. They hesitate. And in combat, hesitation kills. Also, my mom likes sunflowers, and it makes me smile when I look at my armor. Never underestimate the tactical advantage of being in a good mood. The Zitharian soldier considered this. It was so different from everything he had been taught. Dominion training emphasized intimidation and displays of strength. But maybe the humans were right. Maybe there was strength in unexpected kindness, in humor during darkness, in refusing to let your enemies define how you fought. In a small apartment on Earth, an old woman watched news coverage of the Galactic Cooperative Assembly. She was the same woman who had been interviewed during the Zitharian invasion. Now 105 years old, she smiled at the screen. I told you, she said to no one in particular. We are too stubborn to stay beaten. Always have been. And in a museum on Zitharia Prime, a new exhibit opened. It was called The Fall of the Dominion and the Rise of Cooperation. It showed the full history, including the Dominion's crimes. It did not shy away from the terrible things the Zitharian government had done. But it also showed the resistance. The Zitharians like Jevkor, who chose conscience over orders. The Admiral Krovix, who learned and grew even in defeat. The ordinary citizens who, when given the chance, chose peace over empire. The final display in the museum was a recording. It showed a conversation between a human soldier and a Zitharian civilian during the reconstruction of Zitharia Prime. The civilian asked, "Why did you humans fight so hard?" You could have stayed on Earth, protected yourself, and let the galaxy sort itself out. The human soldier thought for a moment, then smiled. Because we've learned something over our history. When you see injustice and do nothing, you become part of the problem. When you see people suffering and you have the power to help, you have the responsibility to act. We could have hidden on Earth. We could have built walls and hoped the Dominion left us alone. But that's not who we are. We're humans. We're curious, stubborn, compassionate, and sometimes too brave for our own good. When we saw what the Dominion was doing, we decided to do something about it. Was it risky? Absolutely. Could we have lost? Definitely. But we won. And now look at what we're building together. That's worth fighting for. The recording ended with the Zitharian civilian and human soldiers shaking hands, then walking together through a reconstructed city, where children of a dozen species played in parks where battlefields had once been. Ambassador Maria Chen, now retired from active diplomacy but serving as an advisor to the cooperative, stood in that museum one day. A young Zitharian student approached her. Ambassador Chen, I am writing a report about the war. Can I ask you something? Of course, Chen replied. Why did humans laugh when the Dominion threatened them? My teachers say it was psychological warfare, but I want to understand. Chen smiled. We laughed for several reasons. First, yes, it was psychological warfare. We wanted to show we were not afraid. Second, we had been studying the Dominion for 40 years. We knew your empire. Admiral Krovik's speech was almost word for word what we expected. It was like watching a performance we had seen before. Third, and most importantly, we laughed because threatening to destroy humanity's homeworld, that is the fastest way to ensure humanity fights with everything they have. Throughout our history, the most dangerous humans have always been the ones defending their home. Threaten a human's family, their world, their freedom, and you do not get submission. You get stubborn, creative, terrifyingly determined resistance. So when Krovik made his threats, we laughed because we knew something he did not. We knew we were about to show the galaxy what humans do to bullies and tyrants. The student nodded, processing this. And humans really did paint jokes on their warships during combat? We really did, Chen confirmed. Because humor is a weapon tyrants cannot understand. Dictatorships demand you take them seriously. They demand fear and respect. When you laugh at them, you rob them of their power. When you fight them with a smile, you show you are not afraid. That is terrifying to those who rule through fear. Years passed. The Galactic Cooperative grew. More species joined. Trade flourished. Scientific cooperation led to new discoveries. There were challenges, arguments, and setbacks. Democracy was messy, but it worked. And slowly the galaxy healed from centuries of Dominion rule. The lesson humanity taught the galaxy was simple but profound. Freedom was worth fighting for. Dignity mattered more than power. And sometimes, the strongest thing you could do was laugh at those who threatened you, then show them why they should have taken you seriously from the start. The Dominion had ruled through fear for 3,000 years. It took humanity less than 3 years to tear it down. Not through overwhelming military might, though humans proved to be excellent warriors. Not through advanced technology, though human innovation was impressive. They did it through preparation, determination, psychological warfare, and an absolute refusal to kneel to anyone. And when it was over, when the war was won and peace established, humanity did the most human thing possible. They offered their enemies a hand up, a chance to be better, and an invitation to build something together. Because that was what humans did. They fought when necessary. They showed mercy when possible. And they never ever gave up on the idea that tomorrow could be better than today. The galaxy learned that lesson, and it would never forget it.